In the heart of a barren desert, beneath the scorched sands and rugged ridges of ancient mountains, something invisible to the casual observer has been growing. Unseen by most, but never forgotten by those who watch the world with quiet vigilance, a network of reinforced chambers and steel corridors hums with purpose. Deep underground, where silence reigns and daylight never reaches, Iran's most guarded secret quietly pulses: its nuclear ambition. For years, intelligence agencies tracked whisperers and shadows. Satellite anomalies, intercepted conversations, unexplained construction. And then, in one sweeping act beneath the blackened sky, those whispers became action. A fleet of precision-guided weapons sliced through the darkness, their path invisible to radar, their aim devastatingly exact. America had made its move. The targets? Alleged uranium enrichment labs, buried beneath layers of concrete and secrecy. The strategy? A blend of cyber-sabotage and kinetic strikes, meant not only to disable infrastructure, but to send a global message. The game of cat and mouse had ended, and the stakes had changed. But as the dust settled and the reverberations echoed through the corridors of power, Iran did not crumble. From Tehran, defiance rose like smoke. Government spokesmen stood before cameras not with fear but fury. Military parades replaced silence. Missiles were wheeled out. Red flags were raised. The ancient Persian spirit, proud, wounded, unyielding, emerged with fire in its eyes. Across the world, diplomats scrambled. Oil prices jumped. Markets trembled, and in closed chambers, world leaders whispered about escalation, retaliation, containment. Allies nodded in approval. Rivals shook their heads. And the people, those ordinary citizens from east to west, watched the headlines scroll by, wondering if the night sky would again light up with fire. Even now, beneath layers of earth, in bunkers not yet touched, centrifuges may still spin. Men in lab coats may still test. And somewhere a silent oath is being made that no matter the cost, defiance will be the last word spoken. This is not merely a story of bombs and bunkers. It is a glimpse into how nations dream, how they fear, and how they fight. And it leaves us all with a question whispered by history again and again. When power meets pride in the dark, who truly controls the dawn? The covert facilities in the desert shadows represent the hidden and deeply strategic core of Iran's nuclear development. Over the years, Iran has been accused of operating secret nuclear facilities, far from the oversight of international organizations like the IAEA. These facilities are not easily accessible or visible. Many are built deep underground, beneath mountain ranges, such as those in Natanz and Fordow, designed specifically to resist airstrikes and foreign detection. Their location is deliberate, chosen for both physical protection and symbolic isolation. These sites are often concealed beneath layers of rock and soil, camouflaged to blend into the terrain, and surrounded by dense security measures, including anti-aircraft systems, surveillance towers, and restricted access zones. These underground labs and bunkers are equipped with sophisticated uranium enrichment centrifuges and research labs that are key to producing nuclear material, possibly for energy but also with potential for weaponization. The secrecy surrounding them has raised suspicions among Western nations, particularly the United States and Israel, which suspect that Iran's nuclear program extends beyond peaceful purposes. Despite Iran's insistence on the civilian nature of its program, the discovery of enrichment levels beyond civilian thresholds and the presence of military-grade design features in some facilities have only fueled further doubt. Intelligence reports have long suggested that Iran's nuclear ambitions are not confined to known or declared sites. The existence of unacknowledged facilities points toward a strategic depth, a network designed to survive inspection, sabotage, and even direct attacks. These hidden installations are not just technological marvels. They're political statements. They symbolize resistance to Western pressure, a refusal to bow to sanctions, and a desire to maintain autonomy in determining Iran's energy and defense futures. The concealment of these sites has also become a key factor in diplomacy. Every round of negotiations, such as those surrounding the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, has been shadowed by the fear that what the world sees is only a fraction of the truth. Satellite imagery, whistleblower testimonies, and intelligence leaks have occasionally pierced the veil, but for the most part, these facilities remain cloaked in mystery. In many ways, they are the physical manifestation of Iran's geopolitical strategy. Out of sight, but never out of mind, always shaping how allies and adversaries respond. The precision strike by the United States was a calculated and high-tech operation designed to neutralize Iran's hidden nuclear infrastructure without escalating into a full-scale war. Utilizing the latest advancements in military intelligence and aerospace technology, the operation was built upon years of surveillance, reconnaissance, and cyber infiltration. American intelligence agencies, in coordination with allies, had monitored suspicious activity around key nuclear sites like Natanz and Fordow, identifying telltale signs of underground enrichment and research. The timing of the strike was not random. It was deliberate, based on a moment when Iranian defenses were least alert and the international focus was elsewhere. The strike began with the use of advanced satellite tracking and signal jamming systems, effectively blinding Iran's local radar grids and air defense communications. Simultaneously, stealth aircraft, possibly including B-2 Spirit bombers, were deployed, each equipped with bunker-busting munitions capable of penetrating deep underground fortifications. These bombs, guided with laser precision and GPS targeting, struck their objectives with deadly accuracy, targeting the nerve centers of Iran's enrichment operations. Reports suggest that the damage was significant, crippling centrifuge halls and disrupting core research labs within minutes. However, the strike wasn't limited to kinetic action. Cyber components played a critical role. Just as in previous operations like the Stuxnet virus attack over a decade ago, digital infiltration likely disabled crucial safety systems and sensors, creating further chaos and hampering emergency responses. This hybrid warfare, combining traditional air power with cyber tactics, allowed the US to reduce human casualties while maximizing strategic damage. What distinguished this strike was not only its effectiveness but its silence. There were no declarations of war, no massive troop movements, no televised speeches. It was a ghost operation, intended to speak through precision and control rather than spectacle. The message was unmistakable. The US could reach even the most protected locations without warning, and without consequence to its own forces. Such a strike also served as a psychological weapon. It introduced fear, uncertainty, and doubt within the Iranian establishment, signaling that their most guarded secrets were no longer safe. In global terms, it reaffirmed America's technological and military dominance, reminding the world that despite shifting geopolitics, its ability to act decisively remained undiminished. The operation was both a blow and a warning. Silent, swift, and unmistakably strategic. In the aftermath of the US strike on its hidden nuclear sites, Iran's reaction was immediate, intense, and symbolically powerful. Within hours, Iranian state media began broadcasting images of military commanders meeting in emergency sessions, while President and Supreme Leader delivered statements condemning the attack and vowing national resistance. Rather than retreating into silence or adopting a tone of victimhood, Iran projected strength, unity, and readiness. The government framed the strike not as a defeat, but as a challenge that would be met with resolve. Across the nation, large-scale mobilization efforts began. Air defense systems were repositioned around remaining nuclear sites, and missile batteries were placed on high alert. In cities across the country, supporters of the regime took to the streets, waving flags and chanting slogans of resistance. Government-aligned clerics used Friday sermons to invoke religious duty in defending national sovereignty, while military leaders, particularly from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, delivered televised speeches warning that any further aggression would be met with a fierce response. Iran's parliament held emergency sessions, and defense spending was immediately reviewed, with a call for accelerated military production and heightened security protocols at all strategic locations. On the military front, Iran activated portions of its radar network and began large-scale exercises near the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, signaling its ability to retaliate and disrupt vital global shipping lanes. The Iranian Navy and the IRGC's Quds Force were placed on heightened readiness, and reports indicated that ballistic missiles were repositioned within striking distance of US bases in the region. At the same time, cyber units within the Iranian defense apparatus began probing foreign networks, possibly in preparation for retaliatory digital strikes against American or Allied infrastructure. The leadership's messaging focused on portraying the country as unbroken and unwavering. Iran's media emphasized the theme of strategic patience, claiming that while they would not be provoked into reckless escalation, they would choose the time and place of response with care and impact. This defiance served a dual purpose, reinforcing the regime's grip on domestic sentiment and warning the international community that Iran's strategic posture had not weakened. Instead of backing down, the nation chose to stand firm, leveraging both symbolism and real-world action to demonstrate that its resolve was intact and its capacity to respond was far from neutralized. The geopolitical ripple effect of the American strike on Iran's hidden nuclear sites was both immediate and far-reaching, sending shockwaves across diplomatic corridors, regional alliances, and global markets. In the Middle East, Israel was among the first to respond, publicly supporting the strike and praising it as a decisive move against nuclear proliferation. Israeli officials emphasized that Iran's nuclear ambitions posed a direct threat not only to regional stability, but to the very survival of neighboring nations. This support further solidified the unofficial strategic partnership between the United States and Israel, particularly in matters concerning Iranian influence. Conversely, countries like Russia and China sharply condemned the strike. Russian foreign ministry officials labeled it a dangerous act of aggression, warning that it risked igniting a broader conflict in an already volatile region. China echoed these sentiments, calling for restraint and stressing the need for dialogue over confrontation. Both nations viewed the strike as another instance of unilateral action by the West that could undermine international institutions and norms. Their response also reflected a deeper strategic alignment with Iran, which both nations see as a counterweight to US dominance in the region. In the Gulf region, US allies such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates found themselves in a delicate position. While privately relieved to see Iran's nuclear infrastructure disrupted, they were cautious in their public reactions, fearing retaliation that could escalate into attacks on their own oil infrastructure or spark unrest within their borders. Diplomatic back channels were activated across the Gulf, with nations urging both Iran and the US to avoid further escalation and return to diplomacy. The economic impact of the strike was felt globally. Oil prices surged instantly amid fears that Iran might retaliate by disrupting shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for global energy supply. Stock markets dipped as investors worried about the potential for military escalation and the disruption of trade routes. International organizations like the United Nations and the European Union called emergency meetings, urging all parties to de-escalate and reaffirm commitments to non-proliferation agreements. The strike also reignited broader debates about sovereignty, preemptive action, and the role of international oversight. It underscored how a single military operation, executed in secrecy, could trigger a cascade of political responses, unsettle alliances, and create new uncertainties in a region already defined by tension, rivalry, and strategic ambiguity. The global nuclear debate was reignited with full force in the wake of the American strike on Iran's hidden nuclear sites. At the heart of the controversy was the question of how far a nation can go in developing nuclear capabilities under the claim of peaceful intent before it crosses the threshold of international tolerance. Iran, a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, has long maintained that its nuclear program is for civilian purposes, such as energy and medical research. However, the secrecy surrounding many of its facilities, the enrichment levels reported by international watchdogs, and the evidence of advanced centrifuge designs led to renewed fears that its program may have dual-use potential, with the ability to shift toward weaponization if desired. The strike highlighted the limits of international oversight, particularly the effectiveness of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Many critics argued that the agency's inspections had failed to uncover or verify the full scope of Iran's nuclear network. The exposure of hidden facilities not previously declared raised doubts about how much could remain undiscovered in other nations as well. This led to increased calls for reform in how nuclear compliance is monitored, with demands for more robust, transparent, and real-time verification mechanisms. Beyond Iran, the strike also set a precedent that worried other nations. If a preemptive military strike could be justified by suspicions rather than confirmed evidence of weaponization, it blurred the lines between lawful prevention and unauthorized aggression. Countries like North Korea, Pakistan, and even those within Europe revisited their security postures and nuclear doctrines, knowing that trust in diplomatic agreements could be rapidly overridden by unilateral action. Some feared this could trigger a domino effect, where other nations might accelerate or hide their nuclear activities to avoid similar fates. The incident stirred public debate as well. In Western democracies, citizens questioned whether such a strike aligned with international law or risked provoking unnecessary conflict. In regions sympathetic to Iran, the event was seen as proof of double standards, where some nations are allowed to possess nuclear arms without consequence, while others are punished even for potential pursuit. In the end, the strike did not just damage underground facilities, it fractured already fragile frameworks of trust and accountability in global nuclear governance. The balance between national sovereignty, international security, and the right to peaceful nuclear development became more precarious than ever before, forcing the world to confront old dilemmas in a new and dangerous context. Iran's defiance and strategic messaging in the aftermath of the American strike formed a critical part of its response, crafted not only for internal morale but also for international perception. Despite suffering tangible damage to its nuclear infrastructure, Iran projected an image of resilience and control. Its leaders moved quickly to reframe the narrative, not as a blow to their power, but as a cowardly act of aggression from an overreaching superpower. This message was carefully calibrated to stir national pride, deepen anti-American sentiment, and reaffirm the Islamic Republic's ideological foundation of resistance against foreign dominance. Iranian state media began extensive coverage of the strike within hours, emphasizing not the loss but the speed and discipline of the nation's response. Interviews with military leaders, footage of renewed activity at partially damaged sites, and the display of long-range missile units were all used to present an image of strength. The regime repeatedly emphasized that the facilities hit would be repaired and that Iran's nuclear program was far from crippled. By showcasing symbolic actions such as raising red flags over mosques and military outposts to signal martyrdom and vengeance, Iran ensured that its defiance was deeply emotional and rooted in cultural significance. Simultaneously, Iran turned to diplomacy and narrative control at the global level. Its representatives at the United Nations condemned the strike as a violation of international law, accusing the United States of endangering regional peace and destabilizing the fragile balance in the Middle East. These messages were aimed at swaying neutral nations and rallying allies like Russia and China, who echoed concerns about sovereignty and the rule of law. Iran positioned itself as the wronged party, a nation unfairly targeted, while others remained silent on the nuclear capabilities of its adversaries. This messaging also played an important internal role. In a country where economic hardships, sanctions and civil unrest have created deep societal pressures, the strike was used to unify the public around a common external threat. Government officials praised national unity, framed the event as a test of strength, and elevated the nuclear program as a symbol of independence. Rather than weakening the regime, the attack offered it a platform to reinforce legitimacy, justify military expansion, and intensify its narrative of resistance. Iran's defiance became not just a stance, it became the strategy, rooted in the belief that survival comes not from silence, but from loudly declaring endurance in the face of overwhelming force. As the dust settles over the deserts of Iran and the hum of satellite surveillance continues to circle above, one truth emerges clearly. This is not just a clash of missiles and machinery, but a collision of ideologies, pride and power. The American strike on Iran's hidden nuclear sites was a sharp reminder that even in the age of diplomacy, shadows can be pierced and silence can be broken with devastating precision. But what followed was not surrender. It was defiance. Iran did not retreat into fear, but rose with renewed determination, turning pain into posture and damage into a declaration of survival. Across the world, alliances realigned, economies trembled, and the fragile architecture of nuclear trust was shaken. The questions this event has raised will echo far beyond the moment. Questions about sovereignty, security, and the future of a world that balances on the edge of restraint and retaliation. In this story of hidden reactors, high-altitude drones, and underground resolve, we are reminded that the most powerful weapons may not be those launched from the skies, but those rooted in the unwavering will of a nation unwilling to kneel. Thank you for joining us on this journey into one of the most tense and consequential chapters of our modern era. Stay informed, stay thoughtful, and may wisdom guide our leaders as we all stand witness to the shaping of tomorrow. Good luck, and may peace always find its place amidst power.